another episode of Teachers Talk Movies. Today we will be discussing a 2014 film entitled After the Dark. So sit up straight, students, and pay attention because class is in session. Okay, so the film we're going to be looking at, After the Dark, was set in the city of Jakarta, which is in Indonesia, and it is about a classroom of international students who at first you might think were college students, but in the end you learn they were actually seniors in a high school setting, sort of, but they seem to be college students, especially the way they act. And their teacher, who is a philosophy teacher, charges them on the last day with an experiment of deciding if there were a nuclear holocaust, who out of the class would survive? There are only 10 slots available in a bunker, and there are 21 students. Now, they are not deciding who amongst themselves, but each one of them selects a card from a box which gives them an identity, an occupation, a personality, etc. And from that, they must decide who is worthy to be in the bunker and who will survive and who will not. My name is Frank, and I'm going to turn it over to my beautiful partner, Lindsay, for her first impressions on this film.
Okay, so my first impression of the film was it was a psychological movie with an interesting premise. I thought the idea was great and thought-provoking, but the story's real life and the hypothetical or the bunker life were mixing and making the story less believable as the movie continued. While choosing who to put in the bunker, my wheels in my own head were turning as to who I would put in and why. I liked when the main character, Petra, said, and I quote, "Being smart isn't always everything," because that's exactly what I was thinking. The whole time I thought they needed people in the bunker who weren't just a genius or intelligent to rebuild if the atomic blast had occurred. They needed people who are creative, artistic, different, funny, choosing people for what they were choosing people for what they thought were the right reasons, yet every single time they chose those people, the experiment kind of ended terribly for everyone. So what's your take?
Well, let me start with this sound. Because we're probably totally opposite in this. First of all, I thought it was a fascinating idea, and I think more classes should be like this. The teacher was challenging them to figure it out. And of course, I thought immediately the carpenters and the technicians and the chemists and the botanists, those are the ones you will need to create a new world once they spent a year in this bunker. And they ended up going through 3 scenarios, the first 2 being a little more logical and the third one relying on only the main character's assessment. First of all, let me say that I think the dumbest part of all of the movie was that there were a few students who were very reluctant to play, that they didn't want to eliminate any of their classmates because it might hurt their self-esteem. Hello, it's a class. It's an experiment. This idea is so indicative of the wimpish youth that we are raising in this world to say that, oh, I don't want to participate in this. I thought it was a fascinating idea, and I was so excited to watch this movie because it had such a good idea. And then 2/3 of the way in, it fell flat and turned out to be horrible. One of the things I thought was very good about it was the filming, which you thought was a little bit off. I thought it was fascinating going back and forth between reality and how they filmed it actually in the bunker. I thought that was very clever, so we're in a little bit of disagreement on that. In a movie that didn't have a lot of brilliant lines, my favorite one was when they said that the one guy was a harpist. So what good could he do for the people? And then someone said, it's even worse. You're a harpist without a harp. And so it made it sound totally useless to have him there. Also, the first one to go was the poet, which would convince me that I'm useless myself. As an English teacher, I would be eliminated right away. They go through two scenarios, and there are some curveballs here. And the teacher himself ended up being the bunker builder. And so he had the secret code to exit. And without him...
Which to me is already stacked in his favor.
Absolutely. And he was controlling the experiment.
Even though he said he wasn't.
He said he wasn't.
He was.
Right.
From the start.
And it wasn't as random as it seemed because he knew who he wanted to put in what position.
It's a challenge.
So he was a little bit shady with that. But let me just get to the part where the movie fell apart. After two scenarios, Petra, the lead character, takes over and says, this is mine now. I am going to decide who stays in the bunker. And she chooses all the artsy-fartsy people. She chooses the fashion designer because they will need clothing for their self-esteem afterward. And she chooses to let herself out in self-sacrifice. And above all, she chooses one person simply because he was gay. Now that is not to say... I'll be criticized for this, that I'm homophobic at any rate. But she chose him simply because he was gay, and that's awesome, she said. That's like choosing me because I'm right-handed. What did that have to offer to the plot? And she chose the wine merchant because she had a red case and a white case of wine.
I would have too.
You would have chosen that too. But what about at the end of the year when you had... nothing left, and you needed all the technicians to help you make the world up again.
But I think the point was that when all of these genius people were chosen, they didn't last the entire year. They didn't make it any further than the last artsy-fartsy group did. So I feel that at least the last group, the group that you particularly think shouldn't have been chosen... they survived and they lived happy and their hearts were full. And to me, that was what the message was all about.
Until they wanted a house or something, and then they were in big trouble.
Well, maybe. But maybe they can collectively come together and figure out how to do it, to survive.
In a moment of, I was expecting at this point to even break out into song and them have the kids from High School Musical to come out and sing, we're all in this together, because it was such a touchy-feely moment. The first two scenarios I thought were awesome, and then the third one ruined it for me. And then, of course, at the end, they had to reveal that the young girl was actually having an affair with her teacher, and he was doing all this to keep her away from her regular boyfriend who was the same age. So we kind of got into the trash heap there a little bit, into the gutter with that story. But overall, I would have to say that this was a movie that offered so much with the plot, but fell flat in the end. And my ranking for this one would be C-.
I agree. I thought that the idea of the movie was very interesting. I just wanted to hit on that. I thought the relationships were changed, and between the hypothetical and the bunker life, as compared to the real life. Petra, the main character, she grabbed a hold of what her boyfriend was going through, and it changed things. And that's what I meant about how I didn't like that they were mixing. It was hypothetical, and she took it very to heart. I thought that the message of the movie was also great, that different is okay and to accept everyone for what they bring to the table. Unfortunately, the movie fell very, very flat for me, and I give it a D, and I would never, ever, ever watch it again.
Wow, even lower than my grade. Fantastic. Well, let's talk then about this week's Quick Hits. Each week, as you know, we are going to come to you with an older film and give it a rating of trash or treasure. And what do you have for us this week, Lindsay?
Okay, well, my movie is a 1962 classic directed by Robert Aldrich titled Whatever Happened to Baby Jane. This movie I watched over the winter because of the FX feud show between Betty Davis and Joan Crawford. And I absolutely loved this movie. It was one of the first horror films of its kind. It's about Jane Hudson. It's Jane Hudson, played by Betty Davis, an aging child star who's attempting to make it back into the limelight again, but she's caring for her physically disabled sister Blanche, played by Joan Crawford, who did a fantastic job. But she's a paraplegic, or she's a pelegic in a wheelchair. And she has a hard time getting around, and her sister's trying to derail her even more. The character, Edwin Flagg, played by Victor Bueno, was also pretty great in this film. The actress's portrayal of the characters were superb. The black and white picture makes the movie eerie, and the plot was creepy and kept your attention. So that's definitely my movie that is an A+ in my book.
In the treasure chest,
Treasure
right?
it goes, yep.
Okay, I have another one that's going to go into the treasure chest from the 1980s, and it's the movie Flatliners. It's a movie about medical students who want to answer the question, what is in the afterlife? And so, led by the character of Nelson, played by Kiefer Sutherland, they shock themselves into cardiac arrest and then record their experiences as they're out. And the other medical students are there to bring them back to life, and then they report what they saw. And Kiefer Sutherland is the first to go under. Well, his experience is not exactly definitive, so each one of them go under for a little bit longer time, and a little bit longer time as they go along, until they reach a consensus about what's really out there. It was an exciting film. It was creepy in a way, and they all bring back their sins with them, and they have to atone for their sins to find peace in life. The cast is phenomenal. Kiefer Sutherland, Julia Roberts when she had that nice curly hair, and Oliver Platt, William Baldwin, and Kevin Bacon. Fantastic film. Love the way it was filmed and the college in which it was filmed at, which escapes me at the moment, but it's very good architecturally. A treasure, definitely to check out. Flatliners. Okay, that's it for this week's episode, except for Lindsay is going to tell us in the last minute here what we have in store for our next episode and what movie we are going to review.
Okay, so the next movie we are going to review is Hidden Figures from 2016. It's a historical drama biography starring Tariq P. Henson, Octavia Spencer, Janelle Monáe, and Kevin Costner. It depicts 3 intelligent African-American women who work at NASA, Katherine Johnson, Dorothy Vaughan, and Mary Jackson, who are the brains behind one of the grandest space operations, the launch of John Glenn into orbit, which inspired and ignited the American space exploration. Hidden Figures.
All right, sounds like a good film we'll be reviewing. Everyone watch it out there and you can follow along with us. Okay, my name is Frank.
And Lindsay.
And join us next time on Teachers Talk Movies. Class is officially dismissed.